So in this tutorial, I'm going to be going through quizzes. Quizzes will allow you to, when online, have something that students can work on. It can be just about anybody, but it has many uses and benefits. This is an example of a course, and usually when you enter a course the first time, you won't be able to edit. If you're a teacher, you have this at the top that gives you the option to turn editing on. So what I'm going to do is turn editing on and add the quiz. So I'm just picking anything. This is a test course. Let me pick, and I'll go to resource, edit, add. Sorry, I need add, and we have here the online quiz. Let's zoom in a bit and see what it's about. So it enables the teacher to create quizzes comprising of questions, types, multiple choice, short answer, numerical. So you can do a lot with quizzes. Those who are doing mathematical type courses, or even if you're asking questions you have to do with numbers, that's available. Short answers, I've used this for short essays, even small projects or projects with little parts, where I'd say after the project you go online and you answer 5 questions for me, and that makes sure I have everything in one place. But of course you can also ask them to type it in Word and email it to you. But the quizzes become much more powerful when you think of multiple choice questions and things that can be auto-graded, right, or need to be collected en masse, right? And you can also set up whether or not a person can try the quiz 1 or 2 times, whether it should be random, shuffled, time limits. You can have all of that in, right? And these are examples of uses. Course exams, I've used it for this, like for a final. They had to, as I said, when it's a project, go online, you work on the project or do the calculation, and you enter the number with your details. Mini tests for reading assignments. That's why I said short type quizzes. You can do that at the end of the topic. Exam practice, I've done that as well. And if you want to give back feedback, that's also good. Self-assessment, I do like that one because you can set up little quizzes, multiple choice, that students can use to determine if they are doing better or not in a course. So let's go on and make a new quiz. Now the quizzes, when designed, there's a format, but the quizzes work like, there's the front end, that's this. Let me just give it a name. So let's say my quiz. There are quite a few options, a lot of options. Right. So you can take your time, go through these. Timing, are there limits? The grading, I usually don't worry too much about that. This is how many questions per page. Right, so you can make it look as well, interesting as you want. Some people want to have, depending on the format, maybe 1 page it just loads and you don't bother going back and forth. Question behavior, you want to shuffle the questions? Yes. Deferred feedback means you don't get the answer until the end, right? And if there are any questions about specific descriptions, you can click, so you don't have to memorize everything. Oh, sorry. Right, so reviewing options, how are you going to, I think I clicked, let's just try it again, there you go. During attempt, every attempt. So there are quite a few things that you can do, but running out of, okay, let's go save and display. Now when you save and display, it works a lot like the questionnaire we used from for the course evaluations. The questions that are set up here actually are the same ones that we can use in course evaluation, or the same type. So once done, of course, these are the settings. You can go back to them. You can modify the quiz. Right. So let's edit it, meaning we want to add some questions in. Right. Now, since I don't have a question bank, anytime you make a question, it goes into a question bank. Right. So let me make a new question. Oh, by the way, from here, let's just go. Oh, sorry, just missed it. I'll go to the question bank later, but let's add some quiz questions. So let's say I'm adding a new question, and here you can see all your options. So let me do multiple choice. I'll say I want to add. Now when you're setting up the questions, right, there's the question name, and there are interesting things you can do with this. The question name is like an ID for the question. It won't be shown to the student. So my advice is, usually you can do something creative here. So for example, I can give the name, maybe if it's a math question, math maybe for addition. That's the text. If you wanted to advise the person, it's kind of boring, but hey. And this is cool. There are some questions that have one or multiple answers. If it's one answer, so maybe it's A, B, C, D, E, you pick one. The ones that are with multiple, that's usually for a higher, what's the word it's called? A higher skill level. Students don't like those ones a lot. They are difficult. So then you can add in your choices. So you can say maybe if the person enters one, and these are like partials, like, and some can even be negative. Okay, so yeah, if you answer this, you got this. If you, oh sorry, 1 plus 1 is not this. This would probably. So this means don't do anything. And feedback. So if the person answered 1, what do you do? So you can say, did you add or multiply? Choice 2. Okay, since I've done a few, I'm going to rush through and stop recording, but I'll come back when I've finished filling this in. Oh, before that, there's multiple tries option at the bottom, so that if the person fails the first time, second time, you can give hints. So maybe someone can try. This is when someone is trying to learn, or you want to help them out a bit. You can do that. So save to continue editing. Connection is a bit slow. Oh, default mark. Thought I put something in there. Okay, so once changes are saved, it's back here. Right, then you can add more and more questions. Okay, let's do a true false. Okay, that's false. Okay, let's pick with from a question bank. Alright, so this is what the question bank looks like. Right. So you can add one or more questions in there. Now the other thing you have here is you can do categories. So if you set up quizzes from different groups, you can pick and say, okay, let me just pick and say, okay, I want to add this quiz in there. So you can have many quizzes, many questions. You can set up many questions over time. So what I do is Usually we type them out in Word, and then someone can copy paste the questions and answers into this, set it up. I believe there's a way to load, but I'll have to check and be sure the format. But you can see the icons here will tell you what type it is. Okay, so let's it's already in there. Okay, so let me save this as one quiz. Where's this? Okay, so I click save. Oh, please. So the total points is here. I didn't give enough points, so it's 2 out of 10. That means no one can really pass this. Okay, have I saved this already? Okay, so saved. And then I go back to the course. That's the quiz. I'm going to make a new quiz, and that one I'll let you pick random so that you can do what you wanted to add. Okay, save and display. This much. Okay, and then we can edit the quiz. I mean, it's add in things. Random question. So this is the cool part. Now, if you set up a bunch of questions, you can say all my questions are coming from this batch. You can make subcategories. I'll show you how to do subcategories, but you can say I want to pick maybe 2, 3, 4, a whole bunch of questions from a question bank, right? And that means that at the beginning that can be done, or okay, let me just do it. Okay, so you can see this is a little bit different. It says random, and you can show you what questions it's picking from. Now, when you start off here, so this is now your question bank, you can decide to create more questions into the question bank. So when you are doing the random thing, you can see the questions and come here and create questions. Now the nice thing about this is when you are creating more questions, just do this. You can add it into that category. Just a sec. I'm going to make it much simpler. Multiple choice. Oh, because I chose multiple choice. Okay, cancel this. I don't want to. It's taking long. We have only 1 more minute before this finishes. So you can go to categories just so I can give you something to. So those are the questions, and this one. Import and export is available, just to get you going quickly. Okay, so if you have a computer science FI, or what your FI can ask for another computer science FI, you can set up some of the questions like what I've done. Export, so there's one option here for XML format. So you can do one type of a question that you want, right? Export and when you export and open, you'll see some of these. And so that means if you have a computer science person, it's actually not too difficult to modify. It just follows a format. It looks like HTML, but any of the CS FIs should be able to help you, because it's just like making a web page, just that there are certain tags that you would use, right? And that means you can also set up your categories and so on. So it's kind of, I think it's a nice way to quickly create multiple questions, as I said, and import them into your question bank. Right. Or your test bank. Now the other thing people may also do is they can go straight here, click more, because there are many more features within a course. Right. So in the course administration, you can scroll down and there are the questions, all the questions and all the categories. So you can go in. So this is not like you're creating a quiz, but specifically you can come here and create more questions. Now the kind of annoying thing is the categories. You remember the categories? You can set up categories and put the questions in there, right? So this is, for example, a category. Maybe within this course I want to have physics questions. I'm sorry this is going long, but I want to make sure you're good to go. At least we'll get the main things in there. So maybe I set up a category for quizzes. Let me add another category. Physics, sorry. I'm going to add a category for chemistry. I'm going to add another category, sorry, for physics, chemistry, mathematics. Right. And you can also do subcategories. That's maybe under physics you want to do and under that, well, let's do alright, and then you can go back to your questions and add them in. So you can have someone help you fill in the questions, but as I said, one of the fast ways to do this is you can get a computer science, one of either computer science or MIS, who can export a sample. So you can do, so a sample, I mean you set up the different types of questions you want, one multiple choice, one true false, one essay, and then what happens is the person opens or exports that one, copies or makes duplicates, because the format isn't too difficult. So that's the format. So this means it's a multiple choice question, it's a true or false question. So if I wanted a second true or false question, I can just take this out here, copy, sorry, duplicate, change the question number, because these numbers are like the specific ID. So when you upload it again, anytime it sees this as the name, it will replace it with all of this. So you have to name them separately. So it's not too difficult. You can do a few, do an experiment, and then you can load them. Now I'm almost out of time. I'm trying to keep this short, but so we can review. Right, so you can set up questions. You have your question banks, your question types. You can set up the quiz. You have multiple options. And best practices, usually it's good to have many questions. For example, I would set up maybe 2 times or 3 times. If I'm going to have a random of 10 questions, I could set up 20 questions, because unless you have them doing the quiz close in time, people may talk or even just see someone after the quiz. It's not that the person means to cheat or anything, but maybe if after a quiz you see someone just open the book and turn to the last section, you're not really watching it. Human brain is interesting. You can process so much and infer so much. So usually I give it large spread, maybe twice the number of questions. So even if it's just 2 questions, I'll tell you, okay, it's 2 essay type questions, but I've made 6, right? Or, well, unless maybe for essay, the answers are not as, what's the word called? The answers are much more broader in terms of what the responses may be. So maybe you don't need that many. But for multiple choice, if you have many more questions, the answers are randomized, it makes it just a little bit better. I mean, that's why the SATs, GREs are much more difficult to fool, because the question bank is very large. And that means you really have to study, because so long as the questions are coming from the area and you haven't studied, you can't just say, oh, I've seen this question 1 or 2 times, or someone said they saw this yesterday, or maybe I took it the first time I got this question. So just it can be done. So someone said we want to do 70 questions and pick 50. Yes, it can be done, right? But you can also use the categories. The categories, I think that's where you should start. Go and create questions, make the category, add the questions into the category. So by that I mean, come here and set up the questions and the categories, like categories first and the questions in there. So it's almost like saying make your folders and put the questions in there, and that way you are very organized from the very beginning. I know I dived straight into the setting up the quiz, but that's just because I wanted to show how it works. And when you finish, or even long before you finish, what you can do is to test it out. So to test out and see how it works out, you can, I think it behaves a bit differently when a teacher is logged in or when a student is logged in. But attempt the quiz. Right, and so this is because I said I wanted just 1 question per page, but you can, depending on how you want it to go, right? Now, for example, if the internet is slow, so speaking of best practices, if you think the internet is going to be slow, you can have all the questions load at once, right? That way the person isn't clicking. That way you can, so this is Africa, localizing. If you know the internet is going to be slow, it's kind of annoying when the person starts the quiz, question 1, question 2, and the page is loading next, and something happens. So if you think internet is going to be a problem, as far as best practice, I would say have all the questions show, and the person can take their time, fill them in. They just scroll down, and they also know that these are all the questions in play. So they can scroll down, take their time, and get to the end and submit once without having to say, oh, there's next and the next and the next. So I think for us, if we have slow connections or you want to keep it simple and confuse people, you can load all the questions at once. But of course, if you load all the questions at once, it can't be very adaptive. It can be adaptive in the sense that you can randomly pick a bunch of questions and show them. But if you wanted someone to be doing self-assessment, that approach may not be the best. It would be better if it's a self-assessment to do 1 question, the person gives an answer. Remember, for every answer you give feedback, so you can do immediate feedback, and then the person reads it, works on it, then the next question. So it's just about style, but I'm sure between the lecturers, the teaching assistants, and the students, over time you come up with some best practices or some way that you do things. You can also set up a basic test just to see how students react. One that is maybe not graded, 2 or 3 questions, just to make sure everyone knows the rules before the real graded quiz goes up. So this has been a bit long, but I hope that everyone is fine. Okay, so hopefully this should be able to get you through setting up your quizzes. Okay, thank you.